Hello everybody. We will present you here uh, our product to remote controls the pivot system. This remote control used controllers on the last tower of the pivots and a web application to access to those pivots. Note that this system is compatible with most of the pivot model sold in all over the world, and it can be mounted on pivot with electromechanical panels. So to access to the system, you type on your web iControlRemote.com. You select then the language. You type here your email address on a password to access to your machines. On this first screen, you can see your pivot on a map with the span here in blue, the direction of running given by this arrow, the pressure at the end of the machine, the engine is shown here, and you can read also the speed of the machine. You have more details here about the pivot status, and you can read here the end pressure of the system, the pressure read at the last tower in PSI, the target speed, that means the speed you programmed for your pivot. You read then the real speed. The controller also calculate the speed of running of the last tower. You see the position given in degrees by angle in reference to the north. You have here the engine status of your machine. Then you can recheck here the water control of the machine. Here the machine is in wet mode with water. The machine also informs you about the next stop for this machine, giving you the date and the time for this approximated next stop. The system is also equipped with an alarm in case somebody stole the electrical cable. The system controls the continuity in the wire, so you get an alarm when somebody tries to steal your cable. Here you have the information of power supply. It's okay. You get information about the GPS status of the controller, the GSM signal level given here. The system also have some counters of running hours and running hours with water. The system also informs you about the quantity of water you applied in the campaign, multiplying the running water with water by the flow of the machine. Then you get here some information, some log info, where are registered all the info, all the data of the system, and can be read here, and you know what's happened on your machine at any time of the day. In this column, you have the command of your pivot. Here the pivot is running is on, and you can stop the machine just clicking here on stop. So a first check shows that the server received your order. The second check informs us that the machine received your order. The pivot just stopped here, and is stopped by a user command. Now the machine is stopped, and we see the machine in black color. That's the color we choose for a stopped machine. The machine can also start by calendar command or program. For example, if I enable the calendar function, I will have this function running. The calendar function is programming here in this tab, where we can program just a start or stop command by time and days of the week. For example, this machine will start every day at 8 p.m. every day of the week. Then the machine will stop at 11 a.m. From Monday to Friday. So this machine will basically irrigate by night on the morning, from Monday to Friday, and all the weekend, day and nights. Back to status. I've got this button in orange color informing me that the system is controlled by calendar. The machine can also restart by power. If the machine was running when the power shut off, when the power comes back, the electric power comes back, the machine will restart if you enable this function. So that's the auto restart function by power. The machine can also start by pressure. If the machine receives water, the pressure sensor at the end of the machine will detect the water pressure, and the machine can start just receiving the pressure. For that, you enable this function clicking on this button. I will now disable all those functions. Okay, so the machine now is stopped. I just start here manually to get my machine running. So the machine is running, and I can also now change direction, just clicking, for example, here in reverse. Okay, so the machine now goes reverse. About water control, I can select to run with water or without water. This function controls the pressure, but also control the valve at the pivot point or the pump, if the pump is wired to the pivot. So if I click on dry, for example, the machine will run without water. So I see here on the log info that the pump is stopping by iControl pump. I can also force the pump to run, clicking on even if the pivot is stopped. I can stop the pivot. So my water control is on. The pump will be forced to keep on even if the machine stops. So that's allowed us to control the pump without using the pivot. If the pump is connected to, for example, a solid set network, you still have the control of the pump without the pivot. Okay, so this button is dangerous because there is no more control of the pump if the pivot stops. So the normal way to use it is to run on wet mode. So the machine will start the pump or open the valve only if the pivot is running. Then if the pivot stops for any reason, on wet mode, the pump will stop and the valve will close on pivot on wet mode. Then let's talk about speed. The speed can be controlled by the panel, by iControl remote at the last tower, or can be controlled by sectors. So basically, if I choose the panel speed, the percentage timer on our main panel at the pivot point will control the speed as a standard pivot. So I clicked on panel, and I see now my target speed is given by the panel, and I still have this real speed information on this place. Then if I decide to control the speed from our system, I click on iControl remote speed. Then I get this device to change my speed and read here the depth application. I send this command to the controller, so I get now my new target speed of 60%, and after a few minutes the system will read the speed at the last hour and will adjust the real speed information given here in this screen. About sector, I will explain that a little bit later. Now, the machine can stop on a stopping slot by position. We can program up to 4 positions to stop the machine, and we can enable or disable those stops here just clicking on one angle, for example. So the machine will stop at 140 degrees, and this position will be shown here in the graphic. So I can have several stops enabled at the same time. This way I can program up to 4 stops. We can adjust those angles in the sector tab. I will explain later. The machine also can control auto reverse. Here, for example, we have a particle machine with 2 barricades. One barricade at 0 degrees and the other barricade at 270 degrees. And I can select to have, for example, auto reverse on this barricade and a stop on this other barricade. But I can change this program just clicking on those bottom. So in this case, we have 2 auto reverse on both sides of the particle. If I decide to stop at the north position, I just click on stop. By the way, of course, I can use real barricades, but I can also program virtual barricades. So I will explain that on the sector tab, where you can see here The angle you can adjust for the stop in slot position, the 4 stops in slot positions. And then here you have the auto reverse or auto stop position for real barricades. So we have to adjust here the position of the barricades with a precision of plus or minus 2 degrees. If you want to add a virtual barricade, for example, at 45 degrees, and another one at 255 degrees, I just program that this way, send the information to the controller, and the controller confirms the program. Those new angles for auto reverse appear here, and I can just enable them, just clicking, for example, in forward for this one and stop for this other virtual barricade. I see now in red the auto reverse position for this pivot. So here the farmer will irrigate from this angle to this other angle. And the same way I can have auto reverse on one angle and a stop on the other, or make a continuous auto reverse function on both angles. Let's go back to sector tab. Remember also that you can program a delay on the auto reverse or auto stop barricade in order to irrigate better your end of the field. About speed, we talked before that the speed can be controlled by sector. We can program up to 6 sectors, defining each sector with its left angle and right angle, and we can apply speed for the forward sense and the reverse sense. So 2 different speeds can be applied on the sector according to the sense of rotation. You can also control the water. You can, for example, on this 3rd sector, running at 100% speed without water to reach the next sector. We have other tabs here. For example, let's talk about the handgun tab, which is a very simple programmation of the handgun. The handgun can be controlled by the panel itself, but it can be controlled by our iControl remote controller in the last tower, just clicking on auto mode. So the handgun will open and close following the programmation of those 6 sectors. You can also recheck your solenoid valve just clicking on to force the handgun to open. So I come back to the auto mode for the handgun, following up the handgun table. We see here the angle, draw the graph. This system also allows us to receive alarms. Different type of alarms, just an info or low-level alarm, high-level alarm. So the machine, the owner can receive an email or SMS, a text message when the machine stops, if the machine starts, if the machine changes direction, if the target speed is modified. The system can also send you an email when the machine receives water, or if the machine loses the water. The farmer can also receive an alarm if the machine is irrigating with too low pressure. If there is some fluctuation of pressure in the net, you will receive an alarm when the machine is running with low pressure more than 30 minutes. You can receive also an alarm when the engine status changed, when the power supply is off. You will receive an alarm when the GPS signal is lost or the GSM signal lost. And of course, you can receive an alarm if your electrical cable on the pivot is cut. Alarms I send by emails or by text message. And you can select who is receiving your alarms according to the level of the alarms. Let's go now to the Setup tab. On this tab you can set up your system, giving a name to your pivots. You must inform here about the latitude and longitude of the pivot centers. You have to set up the difference time with your UTC to get your watch here according to your country. You set up here the wet-dry pressure, and that's the pressure above which the machine will consider there is water. But you will also set up the minimum pressure the machine should work with according to the sprinkler charts of your system. You set up here the flow of the machine to calculate the amount of water it is applying when it is running with water. You set up the hovering length to draw the correct circle, adding the length of the engine to the position of the last hour. We set up also the engine range to show on the graphic the sector irrigated by the engine. We set up there the water pressure delay. That's the time the machine needs to get the water at the end of the machine. When you start the machine with water, the system doesn't have pressure. The system is waiting up to 4 minutes, in this case, to get pressure. If after 4 minutes the pressure didn't get at the last hour, the machine will stop and the pivot will stop the pump. Here we set up the nominal water application at 100% speed, and that's the base of calculation for the depth application according to the speed you're programming. We indicate here the last hour speed at 100% in feet per minute in order to calculate the time or the date, the time and date of the next stop. Then we program an auto restart by power delay in order to wait before starting the pivot when the electrical power comes back. That's allowed you to start different pivots on a different time to avoid all the pivots starting at the same time when the power comes back to the farm. You can also select the metric units if it's used in your country. On this setup, you can also manage the user of your system. You, as an owner of the system, you, of course, have got the total control of your system. Right? But you can also have your dealer helping you, so you can give a total control to your dealer, or you can select to a visualization only. So the dealer can look at your machine, but cannot send it any command. And the support engineer from the manufacturer can also help your dealer, so you can also give him a total control or a visualization only. You can also disable those users if you don't want them to see how run your machines. Additionally, you can also add new operators in your organization. If you have some other people running your machines, you can add them in your system for them to have control of your machines. So you create new users, indicating here an email and a new password and the type of control you give to them, and create the operator there. Then we have a maintenance tab where you can basically reboot the iControl remote controller if there is any system blocked for any reason. You can reboot it and maybe resolve the problem you have. You can also get the last version of your system to check if the controller is using the last version, avoiding bugs. The system can also calculate the pivot length for some calculation. For that, we just make a click on this button. The pivot resets the length of the machine, calculating from the coordinate of the center to the last tower and adding the length of the hovering. So we get here a machine with 1,270 feet length plus 82 feet of angle, irrigating on 270 degrees. That gives you 94 acres of irrigated area. On maintenance tab, you also control the counters. We have a maximum number of SMS given for each month. So we give only 100 SMS or text message per month. So you have here this information. You also have the running hours, total running hours of the machine from its installation. The house with water, and the volume the machine applied. And then you have a partial counter you can reset there at the beginning of the irrigation season. And then for troubleshooting, you can also use this log info, looking, for example, from this date to today, for example, and you load here the log info, so you can check how was your machine at any time, and to recheck what's happened on your machines. About the pump, iControl Remote can use an additional device on your pump station to control pumps. Clicking here, you get information about the pumps. This iControl pump device can read the pressure at your pump, can read a flow meter at your pump station, or you can control it, stopping the pump, so the pump stop. You can start the pump manually, so the pump will keep start even if the pivot stop. Then you can have the pump controlled by the pivot just clicking on auto mode. Then here you set up a pump name, and the flow meter can be set up here, giving the information of gallons per pulse. iControl remote system you can use on a very standard pivot. Using our system, you can use your very basic panel as an advanced panel with all those functions: stop in slot, auto reverse, angles, speed by sectors, water control, and whatever you can have with an advanced panel, you get it with iControl remote on a very simple panel. Thank you for your attention.